Recording and everybody is hidden.
And let's see if I'm still seeing everything. Yes.
Okay.
I could even see the chat, y'all. So if you have questions during it, feel free. So I started teaching about scientific posters a long time ago. I've been teaching with the Rise and the Mark programs, the students in those two programs since like 2000, and I've been at UTSA since 1995, very late in the year. So, I've started out just with the very superficial, this is what you put in to particular areas of a poster, and we'll hit that really fast. But then there's other things that you don't really realize are really poster related. Like one of the things that's really important is actually selling yourself in your research. And you go, what does that mean? Another thing is just making sure that you don't lose people's attention. And that is super easy to do in both orals and posters. But if you construct your poster or your orals in a way that you don't have people going off and thinking about things, or, oh, I'm lost, or, oh, why didn't they do this, or what's that? And oh my gosh, you just pointed roughly at a figure and says, as you could see, and figure whatever, blah, 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 and don't walk them through it. There's a lot of things that are a little more technical, and it's like sort of the hints and the tricks that I've gotten over time. So I'm hoping to pass all of those on to you without ending up being like repetitive or, oh my gosh, this is so much information. It is recorded. Make sure to review it again. I mean, it will be a lot of information fast, and humans, require repetition to learn things. So it will be recorded, and my PowerPoint will be there. So most of you have seen posters. They're presented in different formats. Some of them are even just stuck on your wall outside your lab, like the Hall of Fame. But in common, most of the time you stand by them for a certain period of time, and people come by and talk to you about them. And sometimes it's really hard to hear, and sometimes you're just squished with other people. But in common is you there presenting your work. And the poster itself is really a form of visually augmented discussion. It's like, what is that? You're interacting with the person, even though they don't talk that much or necessarily talk. A lot of times they do interrupt, but here you're guiding them through your research, and you have pictures there to help them understand it. And in fact, that's one of my hints later in doing the poster. If you're giving a poster to a lot of people, like in practice, and they invariably are confused on one point, and you're like doing weird things with your hands, and yeah, well, this goes here and this does that. It's like, forget it. Next time you do the poster or you make another poster, make sure to put something on there that you could point at instead. Much easier. A poster lasts 5 to 10 minutes. Normally, that's your standard poster length. If you're going more than 10, you're actually presenting probably too much stuff. And I would try to go near the 5. But sometimes you need a little more. But once you're getting over 10 minutes, there's just way too much on your poster. People come to you at conferences. The abstracts are published, so people can see, hey, what's the research here? Wow, that sounds cool. They searched, they found something like yours. They're going to go look at it. Other times like at Society for Neuroscience, they'll have 3 hours, and they'll have all the posters like on a particular field of neuroscience at the same time, but people only need to stay by their poster for an hour. And other times they're grouped, they're organized in various ways. But you wander around, and they look at your posters, and sometimes strategically, intentionally come and see you. The cool thing about posters, and I don't know if you've thought about it, is that they are very new information. In a scientific paper, it might have been out or the data might have been collected a couple of years ago. It might have taken a year to get it published. It takes a long time to get it out. And usually the data is not new and crispy, it's kind of old. So the cool thing about a poster is it's often stuff that people were working on up until like the day before they printed it, and sometimes they even go to the conference and print there, because it's like, oh, I have to just do data analysis of my newest stuff. I need to get it in. So, that's what, it's really new info. People look for particular information in particular or in characteristics sections and headings, and we'll look at those really briefly. Although the appearance and content does vary somewhat with the field. So this is like my template. This is a 4-column template, and we'll just look at it real quick because this will give you the foundations, and the rest I'm going to go a little deeper. So the title, it's not too long, but it's descriptive. It's usually big, like 96-point font. Big, you can shadow it, you can make it white, you can put it on a pill. You don't have to put it on a pill. This is called a pill, a round thing. You could do it however you want to, but it needs to be really big and seen from far away. And then your name and the people you're working with. And if you're from different places, you'll have the little superscripts and multiple affiliations right here. Sometimes the conferences will want your email. Most of the time a conference wants your abstract on the poster. You can put it there or not, if it's not required. You'll have an introduction section, or sometimes it's called the background. And I'll go more into that more deeply, but it creates the foundation of your research and places it within the field. And it also usually ends with a purpose or objective or goal or hypothesis or all of those. A lot of times people imply their hypotheses, but it's really, for a student conference especially, and especially if they're having a competition, it's good to put the word hypothesis or some form of it in there and like make it bold. They'll see it. And then purpose, make it bold. And then methods, just, you walk them through it, and it's how you did it. Some people just do it all in words. Some people like figures. Sometimes people will put a figure in the introduction as well, which is perfectly fine. Here's your results. This is just your data and how you present it. And there's better and worse ways of doing it. We'll talk about that a little bit. Like tables are kind of evil because they take forever to look at and understand. Figures are really good. You'll see that the words, the little captions for the figure is near the figure. You don't have this figure here and its caption up here. It's just something. Excuse me, something that you think about. Conclusions, sometimes people write a paragraph, some people bullet them. I like bulleting them. Then drive-by viewers can look at it. Sometimes people say, I don't have time to stop, but they see your title, I want to know what the results were, and they just walk real slow. And if your conclusions are big and bulleted, they can read it as they go. And then references are there because usually in your intro and sometimes methods, you'll have citations and sometimes even the discussion. So you cite people and acknowledgments here. It's who gave you money, what conflicts of interest, who helped you but isn't an author, that type of thing. Your grant numbers, those all go in there. And we'll talk more about these, the particular, how things are set up. And I haven't filled things in, but if you're doing conclusions, you try to make it big enough that you don't have big gray gaps everywhere. You don't just have the background showing. So this is like your basic poster. In this template, I had these high resolution images for the various full programs as well. They could just slide it on there and throw the other ones away. But so these are all the sections you need. There's 3 of them here, and this is just a duplication. This is for people who read or see the PowerPoint without hearing me talk about it. But the abstract, references, and acknowledgments, in an emergency, if you're having trouble with space, those you can squish. Those you can make smaller than the rest of the poster. Otherwise, your text has to be pretty big, and we'll go over what it's going to be. But those 3 can be shortened, and just in case of emergency. I'm having an emergency poster congestion because there's too much stuff. So again, posters are cool because they're the most current science. They represent you and your PI. So your PI is going to really want to see it. Your research mentor, your advisor, they're going to want to see it before you present it anywhere. So they're strict on that. If you do a good job on it, you can demonstrate attention to detail, and it shows you really care. If you're doing a sloppy poster, a lot of times you send the message that you don't have attention to detail and you don't care that much. You don't want to get that message off to your PI. It's a great way to practice public speaking. It's usually the first kind of presentation that a student gives. and I like it. I find them harder to make than an oral because you have to do so much more writing and creating and designing, and orals are just little picture after little picture type of thing. But it is usually the fundamental first presentation you give. I've not seen, especially with a newer student, I've not seen them make a poster and not suddenly realize their project better or understand their project better. It's really common for my first years, either PhD students or especially undergrads though. They go and they make the poster and suddenly they start saying, oh my gosh, I really understand it now. It's so much better. Now I get it. It's like, well, it's the end of summer. I wish you had done this reading and stuff beforehand, but better late than never. And it is a good time to learn how to, understand your project better. At conferences and such, when people are coming up to you, it's a really great way to share ideas. I mean, people will come up and, well, have you ever thought of that? It's like, oh, this is wonderful. Because, I mean, one of the things about science is not that I have to show that I'm great and I have to come up with every one of my ideas that I ever investigate. Not really. A lot of times other people give you an idea or give you a partial idea and suddenly your brain, oh my God, this is wonderful. Oh, it's my whole huge new direction in the entire world. Or I'm going to torture this new grad student by making them explore this thing that now I've just begun thinking about because I met with this person. So it's a great way to get some new ideas. Can influence the direction of your research even. It's also a way to connect and create collaborations with people. Sometimes people come up, it's like, hey, well, I got this, could I do that? One time I was trying to revise the NeuroLab, an older version of it, and this guy had taken a video game, Doom, engine and used it for tracking people's ability to draw in mirrors and whatever backwards. I mean, he really had adopted the Doom engine. And I ended up taking it to the advanced NeuroLab, and we were using it to track motion and to look at learning and memory and things like that. And that's what I got from just going to this guy's poster. So you never know. It can also get you jobs and positions. If someone comes up to you and you do a really good job presenting, and then they just stay and never leave, it's a really good sign, especially if you're getting near graduation and, especially if you're a PhD student. I had one guy that got the best postdoc out of it. And other people have been recruited to grad schools of various sorts, like master students or undergrads could be recruited to graduate school. So, putting on a good show with your poster, that doesn't mean just trying to suck attention out of everybody. It really means just doing a really solid job and telling a really great story. So we're going to talk about that some more. So here's the thing, y'all get to vote, and you could I wish I hadn't thought about this whole Zoom thing. We could number them. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, 4 is kind of in both columns. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So which is the best poster and which is the incorrect poster? And you all could text, or you could talk, but I've had trouble getting people to talk. So let's text. Anyone? The group chat is available. They're all good. Oh, you're cheating. That really is the answer. They're all good. You like number 3? 3 is the best. I love 3. 3 looks very organized. I like 3. It's so nice because number 1, I own the printer. Yeah, I like the bottom right. It looks a lot like this. Are you a physicist? This is the bottom right. Physicists go crazy with posters and do all kinds of weirdo things, and that's okay because people do it in the field. Not a physicist. Well, you might be. You might have physicist tendencies. But yeah, the physicists, even at the college level, even at grad school level, they could do weirdo, crazy, fun posters like this, and no one blinks because that's what physicists do. Up here, if you look at the chemists, let me see if I could better get a better pointer. Okay, I'm doing a laser pointer now, yay! So here's my laser pointer. What's weird about the chemistry poster is you check it out, where are the words? But yeah, I'm chemistry trained. Okay, yeah, there you are. But yeah, chemistry. I fought with chemists once. I tried to make them put more words on it for the Abercams and Sockness conference, and then Dr. George Negrete set me down. It's like, no, they never use words. Even at Sockness and Abercams, where it says you need words, they don't use words because that's just what chemists do. So yeah, chemists don't use many words. What's funny is I look at kinesiology posters. This one isn't, but almost all kinesiology, well, this one is. Calorimeter probably is kinesiology. They're all tall and skinny. It's like, why do kinesiologists do tall and skinny posters? I have no idea. It just came to pass and they keep doing it. But yeah, I love this upper right one. It's essentially white space for the columns. It's not like they have a separate line. It's just they place these text boxes perfectly and they make the background of them white, and then they perfectly align them everywhere. So it looks really nice. The only thing I don't like is their name disappears a little bit, but that's all right. And it even has a beautiful order, I think. It's like results, methods, whatever, methods, and then results, and then I can barely see it. But down here, acknowledgements, the conclusions. This is such a lovely poster. I love that one. I usually use it as my best example. So why isn't this one down here looking like that? It is like a guess here, but the PI doesn't like those. He likes this. And the most correct poster that you could do is the one that your PI will allow out of his or her lab. So ultimately your PI is right on what your poster is going to look like, but you could try to press the boundaries a little, because that's what you do. But they might just sort of quash. It's like, no, it's serious science. We need to make it just like this. So some of the posters are much more black and white than others. So think about the best poster or oral presentation you've seen. And here's like some true falses for you. You don't have to all answer, but just ask yourself. I've seen a poster made 8 and 11 sheets of paper. Yes, I had one of those on there. It just takes a while. And we used to for posters, we used to have them like 8 by 11 or maybe 2 glued together papers. And we'd cut out mat board from posters and glue them to it. So every conference table in every biology and every department had spray glue residues all over it from everybody making these old posters. It's totally true. So let's look over here. All right, so think about the best oral or poster you've seen. I'm gonna go look at, I have humans way over here. I'm gonna bring you back a little. I'm gonna move the chat over. It's like, oh, okay, I see a couple people now. All right, so think about it. What was it? Was it 100% about the science? Their science is so good, this is my favorite ever. Usually my answer is no on that. Is it, oh my, come on, baby, yay, Zoom. Okay, were they using large, impressive words to prove how smart they were? No, those are boring. I don't like those. Was it very formal and serious science? I want to tell you about my science today. I'm not going to modulate my voice in any way, but it's very important and very serious. This would not be something you remembered. This would not be a thrilling thing for you. Let's see here, what next? Complex figures and tables. Look at the fancy research I did. Look at this. You can't even follow it. It's so fancy, but it's great. So that's not what you like either. Huge number of experiments to show all you've done. This is what I've seen people do. Oh my gosh. I am talking, here's how, I have to talk this fast because I can never get anything done now here because I have 75 little figures on my poster and I have to get it done in 5 minutes. So here I'm going to go through it. It's going to be no problems. Here, go. It's like, no, help me. These are not the things that make you think it's a good poster. No, it's usually the people. It's all about the human that's giving the talk. They could sit there and be all boring. They could sit there and be all serious. They could be very, very nervous. They could do all these things. And, you're not going to get that good of impression about them. But if they're engaging when they talk to you, if they seem to like their science, what a concept. I had a student, and even at the beginning, her understanding of her work wasn't the best out of all the students, but she was always excited about her research. She loved her research. She continues, even in grad school now, she continues to win every poster presentation she's in because she is so enthusiastic about her research. Now, I mean, you have to, it has to fit your personality too, but that student, it's like, oh, good, she's going to be in another competition. Ah, she won again. It's like, yeah, she loves her stuff. So you can control people's impression, and you have to get them reacting favorably to you. And that's like selling yourself. You like your research. They want you as a future colleague. You're not down, you're excited about your research. Your story is good. All of these things, you can construct a good story, and you could also tell a good story. So you can construct it in a way you're going to be able to tell the story. Then when you tell it, it's going to be good. But I mean, one of the first things you do, it's like, oh, you've been accepted to so-and-so conference. You sent in your abstract, and the world is good. They have now sent you the thrilling acceptance letter, and you are happy, and they tell you about things, and they might even mention a rubric. And if they mention a competition, then they really will mention a rubric. So what is the first thing you do? You go get the rubric. You got to go get the rubric because it's like cheating. Oh my gosh, I have judged at so many student conferences, and word for word, this rubric says, why did you use this technique? That's not in every rubric. That's not in every poster competition. This one, why did you use this technique? And the students that put it in got full points. Those that didn't could lose like a point or two. And that really means a big difference between winning $250 or not winning $250. And I'd much prefer to win $250. That's a much better thing. So you follow the rubric. They might say, use these headings exactly. I was like, oh, okay, fine. They might say, put an abstract on there. Okay, I'll put the abstract on there. I don't know why they're doing that in the rubric. I'm going to fight with it. Choose other fights. Do not fight with the rubric. Follow the rubric because you want to win money or you want to impress people. And sometimes being able to follow instructions is a little impressive. But so make it easy to follow and understand. We'll talk about all this. Make it attractive. Even all you all homed in on that same little blue poster. Yeah. Tell a good story and maintain their attention. This is actually, we want to sell yourself. We mentioned that. But yeah, always tell a good story and maintain their attention. And I'll talk about this now. If someone is talking to you or you're watching a presentation and suddenly you can't hear them, what happens in your mind? You start thinking about other things. It's like, I can't hear them. What did they just say? I don't know, whatever. I just missed that major part. What did I do? And what the problem is they've just said 3 more sentences and you've just killed them all. And the same thing goes when they use a word without defining it. I didn't understand that word. What's that word? I don't know. Here, hang on. I have to look it up on my phone. You've just lost them for 3 or 4 sentences. There's multiple little things you could do to completely lose your audience. And your goal is to not lose them. It's like, what? No, your goal is to maintain them. Even like in an oral, if you do things that, and then how else do you distract people? And I'll come to this later, but I'm enjoying it. And in fact, you do with just that. You say every 5 minutes or 5 seconds or so. What do they do? What do you do when someone is umming all the time or going, something that just they do multiple times? You could, if anybody's quick at typing, you could put it there. You lose the credibility. You laugh at them internally. You zone out, but you also count. You count them. You totally count every time they say At least I do. I had like little tick marks during one college professor. It's like, he said it again. Boop, there we are. So if they say a lot, you start counting the ums. I had one guy, oh my God, I almost beat him up. It's one of my former students too. It's like, where did you pick this up? Every other word he says, well, actually, what is it? When you don't say the word actually, it's not credible? But actually, it's like, shut up with the actuallys. And I mean, he did not even get a better postdoc. He got one and they must have totally abused him. I don't know. Anyway, so you want to tell a good story. You don't want to distract them with weird things. You don't want to lose them. Here is my favorite thing, and I'll mention it again later, but my favorite thing is when I'm looking at a poster, or they're walking me through a poster, or they're doing an oral presentation, and they throw a figure up, and it goes click on, and then they go, as you can see, we found all this and this and this and this and this and this, and they go on as if you actually had time to process and understand what they just put on there. And that is one of the things that drives me crazy as well. So I'm going to have you all not do that as well. So these are a couple of things we're not going to do. And hopefully I'll get through my slides before you want to like throw me out. So constructing a good story, you want to develop, a good story so you can maintain their attention. Again, the rubric, content must be limited but well selected. It's like, limited? I want to put my thesis on my poster. No. Your thesis on your poster. Do not put your thesis. Do not even put a whole paper on the poster unless maybe you're a chemist. Chemists can do it because they don't have completely insane weirdo papers. A biologist, you almost have to write like 3 papers to get a paper out nowadays. They're really long. You don't put a whole biology paper on a poster. You would, oh my gosh, you'd be talking to people for like 30 minutes. It would be long. So you've got a content limit. We're going to talk about it. It's sort of hourglass, especially in your intro. It's like broad, catch their attention into this is what I'm doing, and this is what I did. And suddenly here I'm tying everything I did back to the world again. So they call it an hourglass, and I'll mention it some more. Really, on this one, it's usually multiple, I typoed that one. It's usually multiple presentations on a single thesis, but we'll talk about that. Strong transitions between experiments are really important. Great figures and know what's on them. Strong conclusions, we'll all go back. These are things, they're things I'm gonna cover. And then an end story, you gotta end. How many of you have been watching someone and they're presenting and they don't know how to stop? And it's like, that's my poster. That's not impressive either. So this is all like sort of a summary of what I'm covering next. So here we go. So here's our rubric, blah, blah, blah. It assists the judges to judge fairly. Usually they have several emphases. And if you want to, at a later time, I sent this PowerPoint, it could go up there. Abercams, the Annual Biomedical Research Conference for minority students, has like a really good rubric. And we've ripped it off and used it for the College of Science conference, and it's everybody rips it off. So it's a really good one to look at to see how to refine your poster so that it meets all 5s. 5s are good. They're usually looking at the poster board or PowerPoint. They're making sure you have an obvious purpose or hypothesis and a statement of your problem at the end of your intro. They want the methods and controls and comparison. They want those mentioned in the methods. The results have to be in the results, but they want high quality results, which sometimes is a bummer because we just start our students in summer. So sometimes they don't have very robust and high quality. They just have something. So that's still okay, especially for an undergrad at their first presentation. Anyway, conclusion and future directions, it's in the discussion. Overall presentation and handling questions. All of those, you'll get like 5 or 10 points each, depending on how much. They have little multipliers for each section too. But all these things are judged on a rubric. So here we talked about the great hourglass here. And this one's a little funny because it has discussion and conclusion separate. In biology and most of the sciences, they run them together and they just put them all under discussion. But in other fields, they could do other things. What's right for you is what your field does. So go, and what your PI likes and what your lab does. So you could, once you're allowed back on campus, you can peruse the hallways, or you could just ask for copies of posters from your lab. But you want an intro, but especially if it's not someone in your field. I mean, if it's a super specific conference, you don't need to, the stuff you're doing itself, they'll know why you're doing it, so it'll be interesting to them. But if you're at a general conference where it's not all a bunch of crystallographers doing exactly the same thing, you need to catch people's attention somewhere. The poor chemists, they come in and alene chemistry, it's the most marvelous thing. It's terrific, and here's how we do it. And I'm going, why? I don't care about your chemistry. Why? And it's like, we need better drugs, and antibiotics are being limited, and a lot of the super biologically active chemicals are started with alene chemistry, and then, you know, here we're trying to find another way of doing this, and it's cheaper and faster, and it'll make better drugs. And it's like, oh, I care about it, I care about it. But yeah, if you just start, so you got to have this hourglass to catch people when you're not like at your conference for very specific. You're catch people with the broad why they even care about your research, and then bring it down to your research and then what you're doing. That's like the middle of the hourglass. Then you finish it, but then when you're discussing it at the end, you're going to be, yeah, this was good. It's important for the field because of this and whatever. And finally, we're going to make better drugs and your life will be happier. You want to give me money now, right? And you know, that's sort of how it goes. So it broadens back out. And again, the headings all depend on the field. There you go. And a lot of this, here's phenomenon, theory, and hypothesis. This all runs into intro. So it's really the intro where you're going from fat to very specific. You're leading down to your problem or the gap in the literature that's not known that you are exploring. Okay. Oh, so this is the hugest, biggest, most awful problem that everyone has. And I mentioned it earlier a little bit. I have people, they always go and try to throw a whole paper or an entire thesis onto a poster. No, your thesis is worth many posters. A paper is worth a couple posters, but a thesis is worth many, many posters. So what happens if you use the same title on every poster? It doesn't count as a different poster. Ah, ha, ha, ha. No, you need to change your titles so you don't have the same darn title on every poster, meaning it's the same poster. So you kind of break things up. And I've had some students, it's like, well, what do I do with this? And it's all in my methods and it's all, no. So at the very beginning of your thesis, this is fun. It's like you could put a title that's similar to your thesis, but then put a little addition to it or refine the whole thing. And then you have an independent title, and it'll be for the very early stuff. Let's say if you're a scientist, we were just talking to one student yesterday. They're going to make these cool organoids, like you take cells, you turn them into stem cells again, then you turn them into brain cells. It's cool. You treat them with chemicals, and then you watch how they develop and how they interact and all these cool things. Well, his first thing was he has to make the appropriate organoid that makes dopamine cells. So that's like his whole first poster. You know, eventually he's going to be seeing how these two organoids work together, and eventually they're going to see if they could do customized medicine and all of those big, huge, cool things. But at the very beginning, you know, it's not about that. It's right about making organoids. And I'll talk to you a little bit two different ways to handle your intro, depending on how you want to focus the poster. But no matter what, it's not your whole project. You got to strategize. You want to have multiple posters by the time you graduate. You want many. The more the better. You look good. Then try to get lots of publications out too. But yeah, they have 1 to 4 experiments on them, maybe 5. You can squish more, but you know, you got to look at the timing, and you don't want to be talking like an auctioneer again. You work with your PI. You need the final approval from your PI. Never think you're presenting a poster or send it to be finally published or printed or whatever without your PI looking at it. But overall, yeah, one project could be multiples, and you have to keep that in mind, which is where people also go and mess up things, because their intro, you got to watch how you make your intro. There's 2 different ways. Either you can make an intro, at first you modify your title a little bit. You could make your intro to your entire project. You know, this is my thesis. You kind of can make the intro there, depending, get my hands level here on my screen. You do the intro. I got it. Oh no, I'm very bad there. And you can make the intro kind of about your thesis. And at one point, when you're getting narrower, you could say, the overall goal of all of my research is to this. But then you go, the goal of the present study is this. And that makes it much easier. And sometimes even what I have them do, if they want to be very clear on this, you could even do like a little, in the methods, you could have one little flow chart. And it's like, these are the 4 major things you're going to do. And then you highlight, this is what I'm doing in today's poster. La, la, la. And then the methods you put in, the heavy duty methods, is not every method you're going to do for the entire life of your project. You don't need to tell me about how you're going to screen your organoids and whatever with drugs 13 steps down the road, when right now you're just trying to grow the darn things. So the only methods you put are growing the organoids. You don't need to like kill me with 87 million, methods to talk about it. And that's just, that just bogs you down, because really you're telling a good story, remember? And if you want to put your whole thesis in there, you gotta, overall big for thesis, smaller for this project here. Or some people just say the heck with that and make it stand alone. They don't even mention the thesis. They just talk about the coolness of what they just did and had to do the intro to that. And then here's this, and here it is developing, instead of trying to do this mouse thing and, modifying the title and whatever, this kid could have just put developing dopaminergic specific organoids using 3D culture or something. And he could have just called it that and not even had it as a subtitle. Is this confusing to people, or am I being clear? This is the biggest, most annoying mistake that graduate students do, is they put everything on there and then they don't subdivide. I said that twice, but now we're saying it again because it's really darn important. And on that one, you don't even need a flow chart. You're just talking about, this is what I did. I made organoids, and you don't have to introduce your whole thesis. A lot of times people, they're attached to their thesis, so they'll put the whole thing. A lot of times an undergrad doesn't know where their work is attached to everything yet, so they just do the little second part. Why are you doing this? I don't know. Okay, well, that's fine. Ask the grad student. I'm picking on undergrads. I love my undergrads. Some of them, by the time they graduate, they are little grad students, So there we go. Anyway, so the parts, again, names and affiliations, we talked about it. Use logos and superscripts and all of that. Use your email if they want it. More on logos. They're dangerous if you go and you find a tiny one on the internet and try to dump it on your poster, enlarge it, print your poster, it looks like crap because it's pixelated. You need to find something that's fairly high resolution to get it to print. You want to find something near 300 dots per inch, or like at least a meg big. And one of the things I'll tell you as well is you make it almost at the size you need it. You don't rely on, oh, look at the end, I'm going to resize. And everything gets messed up and pixelated and disaster. So try to find a nice, at least 1 meg, beautiful version of your logo. And on your screen, it won't make that big a difference. But as soon as you put it printed, it's going to make a big difference. And you'll think, oh, look, this one looks great on my screen. Well, it's 72 dots per inch, so it's going to be fuzzy. I don't want a fuzzy logo. You want a nice logo. So that's a little more on logos. Oops, I've got to put your abstract. Sometimes it takes up like the upper half of your first column. It's pretty common. Again, use it or not. Usually, traditionally, you're going to have to check with your field though. Traditionally, it's been the same one that you have submitted to the conference, even if your work has been modified over time. I expect that will change eventually because everyone has access to those old abstracts, on the online version there on their phone. But as far as I know, it's still always the same one you submitted, even if it turns out that it was completely wrong and you did something almost completely different. So it's still the old ones there. Again, you can shrink it or replace it. Oh, here's the thing I see people do all the time. This is my other pet peeve. Because your abstract, an abstract has an introduction, methods, results, and discussion in it. That's what it is. It's a short, tiny version, but it has all those sections. Because it has 3 sentences of introduction sometimes, I have students that think that that's okay for their whole introduction. It's totally not. You need a standalone introduction. Your abstract does not replace your introduction, except if you're in Robert Renthal's lab and he didn't want both. And there, I don't mess with him and he does whatever he wants to. But for the most part, most PIs want a separate abstract and introduction. Talk to your PI, your mileage may vary. Your intro, again, not replaced by the abstract in Gail Taylor land. Put the whole intro. Now here again, I have students that go and leave out the sentences they put in the abstract because they're already there. It's like, no, Put the best sentences, all of them. Use all of your sentences in your introduction. Well, it's already up there in your, ignore your abstract. It's just this little thing. It's ignored. You put it up there, you forget it exists. Put a good written introduction. Sometimes people even bullet them. Sometimes people have a figure. Whatever it is, it's whatever people need to know to understand why on earth you were doing your work and what your work is founded on. It's the weird part of the poster though, because a lot of times there's no figure. So when you're when you're giving your poster talk, you don't point to just the words. You have to have this intro in your head, until you have a figure there, and then you can point at it. But your intro, but you got to write it too, because your poster has to be standalone, except if you're a chemist, but then chemists can understand those things. But yeah, your posters have to be standalone. So you need to have things fully written out. Let's see, it gets your viewers interested, like we said. It's the reasons why you chose to study, what models, whatever. It's usually equivalent to like one double-spaced 12-point page. If you're writing it off the poster, if you make something about that long and dump it on your poster, it's usually the right length. But you really, I have another slide on this, but you refine it. You look at every word. Do I need this word? You take every sentence, you look at your sentence and say, how would I summarize this sentence? And if there's a shorter way to summarize it, then put the summary instead of your sentence. So keep getting shorter and solid and easy to understand, and do not use GRE words. You do not need to use plethora or whatever. Don't use dearth. Avoid those words. Just use normal human words that everybody uses. Use your scientific words, but then define them. But don't try to use GRE words. You're going to probably have citations. I almost always push that on people, and I forgot what field, but they don't put them. But for the most part, you're going to cite people. You know what that means. If it's their idea or discovery, you need to give them credit. Their little name, Taylor, comma, whatever. It needs to go there, and that needs to go. The full reference needs to go into references. A lot of times on my template, I don't have purpose and hypothesis embedded, because most of the people take those to the Abercams conference, and the Abercams conference, you lose lots of points if those are not there. So I make them very obvious. But in a lot of posters, if you use my template, you can throw away that part that's purpose and hypothesis. It's a separate bullet. But no matter what, put it in your intro near the end, what you'll hypothesize, the purpose of this work was, and things like that. And then even take the word hypothesis and make it bold. Hypothesis, you hypothesized. And just whatever version of the word hypothesis is there, just use it there. And purpose, I would underline purpose too. Just because people always know it's there. So it's good. And usually between the abstract and your intro, you've taken up the whole first column of your poster. So that's pretty good. And here's just, I'm covering it up with the Zoom window, but some intros, here's a whole lot of figures. This intro is just like a boring paragraph. This one's bulleted. Whatever's right is what your PI likes, and whatever your field does, and whatever you like doing. If they leave it to you, then do what you like. But using visuals, if you're trying to describe anything really technical here, if you find yourself ever having trouble describing something technical in your intro, always just add a figure, before you print the final version. And again, here's the text. We talk about that. When you're especially in your results section, or any figure that you have there, in a scientific paper, it's like there's the caption with the figure, and then there's a figure, and then there's text that's extra. In scientific posters, in the whole results section, or any of the intro that does not have figures, I mean, any of the intro with figures, it's just what's written usually in the caption or the little description below the figure. You don't have another whole written thing like you do in a paper. You know what I mean? Was that at all not terribly clear? The scientific paper has figures. It has a description of the figure and the results, essentially the summary of the figure right below the figure. And then it has words separately that describe the figure. You don't do that, especially in the results section. You just get rid of the other words, and you keep the figure, and you keep the description of the figure, the little description, the caption type thing. That's what you put in things. Don't write sentences that like wrap 3 times. Those are really hard. Write shorter sentences than that. You don't want to have 3 lines of sentence and someone who's reading this, especially if they're doing an online thing where they have to read. I hate that. So beware of that. Again, typos look bad. Put the text and images near each other. And then this was, Mr. Matheson used to say this. He was my high school English teacher. There is no good writing, only good rewriting. So when your PI gets a hold of your text and butchers it, they're helping you with the rewriting process. But always keep the original because sometimes they change their mind. But definitely always keep versions of your poster and versions of things over time, because sometimes you do need them later. All right, there's a purpose and hypothesis. Again, purpose, why you're doing it. Hypothesis, it's the same as for the abstract, and we talked about those a little bit. Materials and methods. Usually it's the text with the subheadings. You could do a flow. Again, if you're doing the giant, here's my whole project, I'm doing this, you could have a little flow chart, and then your methods down below. For Abercams, you need the why you chose the methods, because they like it, and it's in the rubric. But you need to include subjects, experimental design, drugs and equipment used, statistical methods, why you chose the method, these things. These are all, you got to have them, because people have to be able to reproduce what you did if they're reading your instructions. You better do it, you be good. Results, it's usually the largest, varies with field. It's usually like the 2 middle columns. Try not to present raw data, although no one who does gels can ever resist putting one on there. Electrophoresis gels have to go on because they go there, But, if it's just a bunch of raw data, like you ran one trial and you got one figure, that's my data, maybe if you're an undergrad, it's your first experiment. But otherwise, try to, if you cannot resist putting one version of, this is what my raw data looks like, isn't it cool? It's what my Spectra or whatever does. But then put some sort of figure that summarizes it. Now, the most evil thing you could do to someone on a poster is to say, here is my table. Now, sometimes, like if you're doing this huge genetic analysis of 87 zillion genes, you got to do it. But a table's really hard to orient yourself and to see changes. It takes a lot of focus. If you put a table, you really have to walk the people through the important parts and maybe even put boxes. This was the important one right here. If you could do a figure instead that's like some sort of nifty line graph or some sort of histogram or something that makes it easier to understand the trends or whatever you saw, try to do that. But overall, do make them simple, make them easily seen, make all lines wide enough. I see people, I built my great poster, and they'll use yellow as something that draws the line, and it's 1 point thick. So it's this tiny little yellow thing on a giant white background. Not great. But any of those things, you could like double click and make them 4 or 5 points wide, wherever you're making or drawing things. You could enlarge things and try to avoid yellow, but you'll do what you do. Here's another thing. This is a little hidden extra thing. If you're using a similar graph, but you don't have all the information on one graph, if you did like multiple trials and you can't fit everything on one graph, so you're going to present it on 2 graphs, always have the axis the same between graphs. This is another, you are shaking your head, Dr. Boss. You know this as well. They always do it, and a new grad student, they always get jumped on because on one slide, where orals, one slide, it goes from 1 to 1,000. On the next slide, it goes from 1 to 20, and they look the same. And you go, excuse me, go back a slide. Oh, I was trying to understand that, but you messed up your figure. Your axes are messed up. So if it's similar, force the axis to be the same. And, I saw a student yesterday, it's like, I was not impressed. It's like, look, that's only a tiny little change between that and that. And it's like, oh, she didn't tell me it's a logarithmic scale. It was, it was 10 times bigger, but you couldn't see it. So you gotta be careful to explain things, y'all. Results continue. Again, tables, hard. Figures, yeah. 1 paragraph per image. That's what usually you do. Do an image or an image group. Sometimes you put 4 pictures together. Just put like 1 paragraph with them. So each, and this like here is a group and that has its one paragraph, but you might want, carefully A, B, and C so that they refer to it and you know what they're talking about. Here's the conclusions. It's so funny. So conclusions discussion, it has multiple things in it. It has very few words. Bullets are great. Make it larger, make it blue. I don't care. First, you're summarizing the biggest results. This is my biggest thing. This is my take home. This is my most important thing I found. Here I found it. And then if you really want to do well, especially if it's a student conference, address how it worked out with your original hypothesis of what you thought was going to happen. That's a good thing. Another thing is then tie it back to the real world. How is this, what's the implications? How is this important? Here's where you're zooming out again. And then your future directions. In the future, we plan to do this. Now, those of you who have that figure near the beginning of your flow chart of everything you're going to do, essentially, everything you're going to do in the future is your next 3 specific aims or whatever. It's already on there. You just summarize it, boom, boom, boom. If you're near the end, it's like, I don't know, I'm leaving. I'm going on a postdoc. No, you don't do that. You try to, just what's next. And it shows off, what you're doing. And again, bulleted, fine. Boring, square paragraph, fine as well. Any old way. References, you got to cite them. If you have no space at all, you can shrink them. If you really, really have no space at all, you could leave the titles out. But usually you leave the people and the journal and the, whatever, the issue, volume, things, and page number. They all have to stay. And acknowledgements, people have told you before, they're important. You got to thank your folks. You got to thank your money. Someone give you something, but they're not an author. Thank them. Don't piss them off because they want to be an acknowledgement. You have to be good to them. Technical assistance. And if someone doesn't expect to be acknowledged and you do, then they feel, ooh, that makes them very happy. And then you have people happy at you. Having people happy with you is a good plan because then they do things for you, and they'll say good things and they'll tell you when there's a job and things like that. So thank them for all those things. It's where they also reveal possible conflicts of interest. Yeah, I found that smoking isn't harmful and I'm supported by the tobacco industry, things like that. Or biotech company, this is the best product I've ever done research on. Oh, I'm a paid collaborator of them and they give me $10,000 a month. You got to put that there because if you don't put it, people learn of it, they'll really, really not trust any of your research or you. So you have to put potential conflicts of interest there. And your funding, your grant number, you put that there. And again, you could shrink acknowledgements if you don't have space. So overall, when you're making it, how many need, I almost need a little break. I think I need to breathe for a moment. Let's take a minute and everybody wiggle in their chair or something and breathe and do something because we have to sit for so long. Of course, this is going to be in the middle of the recording. I guess I won't sit that long. But anyway, so I'm giving you a mental break because there is a lot. I mean, it's like a long movie theater or we almost in an intermission or something. But so anyway, when you're thinking about what your poster is going to look like, you kind of want to make a rough plan. You don't want all the figures in the last column. You don't want to have, so much space left over because you are only really putting one experiment on there. You decide you need a 3-column poster format or a 4. On a 3-column, you usually have only a couple of experiments. On a 4-column, you have more experiments. On a 4-column that you expand up to 42 inches tall, it means I almost have too many experiments, but it needs to be a little bigger, So you kind of plan and you figure out what pictures you need, what figures, you talk with your PI. What do you think what's the good story for this particular paper? Because sometimes there's even stuff, it's like, that is too groundbreaking. If we put it to the conference, someone will steal it. Don't put that. So you've got to get a good story on what they're comfortable with you having out there. And, what is good, a good story when you tell it. And, again, I'm going to have trouble describing that. That's really hard to describe in my intro. Figure, duh, make one, find one. Let's see. So you need your text. Again, you have to you have to know that text will be there because it has to be standalone, like we said. Balance the text and images if possible. Don't just put everything on one side. Make it look nice. Like that one that you like, that blue guy. That one is just, it's just so nice and balanced and peaceful. I love that one. So, and they use the nice a white space to do columns. So what do you think of this one? This is like, no. So this is not advised. This one, it was so amazing I had to do it. But don't color coordinate with your poster. And you really don't want a very huge distracting background. It's like, he's great. I would stop to talk to him, but I'm like, oh my. Yeah, he is fun. Anyway, so you kind of lay it out. In the middle, people get a little creative. The reader gravity is usually for, obviously, because we read from left to right. You go from the poster from left to right. You usually start in your upper left and go down. The most simple is like down, and then you go down and you up and down and up and down, and you're all done. Sometimes people get creative in the middle. It's like down, up and in a little circle, over, or sometimes la, 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 la. You've got to, that's why people put like A, B, C, and D. Make sure that people don't get lost when you're reading your poster. You know, so if you're going to get creative in the middle, label it somehow so people know what to read in what order if you're not there. But yeah, have the obvious flow in headings. There's your white space. Try not to have excessively obtrusive backgrounds like giant pink mouth and teeth. Again, 36 by 54, that's a good poster size for a 4-column poster. PowerPoint can maximally go to 56. If you want something even longer, you're going to have to make it in something else or make it maximally in PowerPoint and then have the printer bring it up a little bit, which is a possibility, but you never know if they're going to, if I'm doing it, it may or may not happen. But these are really good sizes. When you get to 42, it starts feeling really tall. So 36 is like that way and 54 is like that way unless you're a kinesiologist. But then it's really easy. You could reach it all. Even if you're short, you could just post it a little lower. You don't have to make it. If they say poster boards are 4 feet by 7 feet, do not make your poster fit the poster board. You do not have to do that. I remember having anxiety my first one. You're telling me not to make it big, but they say it's this big. It's like, I used to be so good at following rules. But anyway, so these are good sizes. It is not influenced by the size of your poster board. Do not have a stress out attack if they say it. Sometimes at one conference, they wanted to make us, no one followed directions up. They wanted to make them tall and skinny and put 2 on each 6-foot wide poster board. And they had biologists coming and no one read the rubric. So it was they were all over the place. Anyway, so design, do you want bullets and figures? Where do you need help explaining things? Your methods, again, could be a flow chart, results, all these different ways. You decide what it's going to look like. And here's our visually appealing. Ooh, it's our favorite poster again. Ooh, I love it. Yeah. So that is very visually appealing. But this one is perfectly fine. It's serious science. And they do have a little green fluorescence in it. So, hey, that's awesome. Font sizes, they vary with where you are in it. The title's huge. Your names are still pretty huge. You don't want to get below 20-point font in your text, even on a figure. Oh, figures, they could be smaller. No. Make your axes bigger. Ooh, how did I do that? Talk about bigger. Uh-oh. All right, that was weird. You need to make your axes bigger. Your descriptions, your labels of your axis need to be the same big so people can see them. People should be able to read it from 4 or 5 feet away. Or if you zoom in a little bit, if you're trying to do an online one, you need to make it so people can see it somewhat, but though you're going to have to zoom. We'll talk about that a little at the end. And if I get to be going too long, give me like a 10-minute warning. Oh goodness, that's new. Okay, all right. Ooh, The magic escape button, improve my world. So when you're creating it, there's samples. Your lab, the easiest way is to ask your PI, do you have a copy of anyone's poster, you know, who is also in the lab, or someone who graduated, or ask the person in your lab, do you have a copy of your poster? Can I have a copy? Yes, PowerPoint, there you are. And it's what your PI likes. It's already made it through one review, and you just modify it a little bit. Here is my template. This is a 4-column. They have a 3-column up there. I'll give you the 4 if you want it. You can change the pills. You can not have 2 UTSAs, put something else up there on the right. Mess with it however you want to. Always remember to take off the little vertical lines, which are helping you to keep the white space because they print. Oops. These lines, the guidelines do print. So you have to click on them and delete them. We've printed those. Oh, here's another thing that people do. They leave those on and we accidentally print them. They also, and I put purpose, and it says objective, aim, and goal. You don't leave them all there. You pick one, you know, so you delete the other parts, and your conclusion, discussion, or summary should just be the conclusion. And so you have to refine those a little bit if you use my templates. PowerPoint, again, 56 max. You don't try to make it small, because it will be bad for you if you try to just resize it up to the big size that you want it at. Nothing's going to line up. All of your text is going to be wonky, and your figures are going to be too low of resolution. So try to make it at the same size that you want it. Pictures, again, you know, it's the same thing. They're fuzzy if you pick too low of font. You know, you're going to get pixelation. If you get too small of resolution, you get pixelation. Additional info. Here, I'll show you this real quick. Will my world fall apart if I do it? Probably. Okay, I have to go over here. Where is my PowerPoint? Okay, I'm not going to do it. I'll just tell you. So this text box here, if you do a right click on it, you get all of these cool attributes come up, and you can choose, I want a blue background, I want a white background. You could pick how far the text is going to be from the edges. You can pick if you want a little shadow on it. You can pick an exact size if you want it. You could even pick a position if you want it. That's a little far. I have other ways of positioning. So, you know, you can manipulate your text box that way, and it helps you a lot. And if you're like, gosh, this is, look, it's closer here than it is to here with the bullets, I think it feels it's unbalanced. Well, a little click right there at the top, a right click, you can go and even set the margins within your text box. So it is powerful. You can do that. And these text boxes, you know, those big white boxes on the beautiful blue poster, that's a text box. So you can go and set the size. Do not, you know, if you want to go crazy, if you want to go completely crazy, and I hope, it used to be on one of my templates, beware. There used to be one where it was, you have to go into like format text or something, unclick anything that says resize to size of image, resize text. Never have your text resized to fit your box, because then you think you're using 30-point font, but you're not, because it's shrinking it automatically, and it will drive you crazy. There is a setting, if you find, it's like, I thought I enlarged that. What is, then somewhere in your template or in your putting together, you have found a way to make sure that the text resizes with the box size, and you don't want that. You want the box to resize with the text, not the text resizing to the box. Did people understand that? Did that make sense? If people leave, oh yeah, if people have to leave, it's long. I think I told you it was going to be like long. So it is long. It's like an hour and 15 minutes, I think, unless I've gone beyond that already. All right, now get back here, go forward. You could also do this shift click thing. If you hold down the shift key and click on 3 things, and you go up to format in the drawing area, you can say align, and everything you have can align. All the little boxes, if I wanted to align those 3 things, there's an align function where you could say align top, and it'll do it, or there's an align function where it'll space it out horizontally evenly. That is a good thing. So you do that. All right, leave time for critiques, because there always are some. When presenting, that's a little distracting in the background. Just exude that you are a scientist. Have confidence in your stuff. You want to sell yourself and your research. You're confident, you're well prepared. If you're not well prepared enough, you will get nervous. So make sure you're well prepared enough. Show your interest, show you like science. Just when you're, when you're talking to a person, make them feel that you like them. You know, when you're thinking about them, don't think, oh my God, they're this big scary judge and they're going to judge me harshly and I'm going to look like an idiot and this is going to be bad. Do you want to torpedo yourself? That's the best way to do it. Just think that way. Poof, you're going to be in trouble. Instead, it's like, ooh, I get to tell them about my science. This is marvelous. And they're interested. They like my science and they might even be looking for someone to work with them. They want me to do well. You know, they want you to, they seriously do. Otherwise, they'll be really bored at your talk. They want you to do well. So just assume you like them when you're talking to them. And this like thing will exude and they will feel it. It's absolutely true. You want to engage with them. You want to show that you're sharp, answer questions well. A great future collaborator, maybe they want to hire you, all of those things. So you could totally do it. When you're presenting it, be professional. You want to dress well. Follow the state. I told one student this, he goes, well, our posters are always given on the in the evenings when we all switch to blue jeans and drink beer. It's like, fine, follow what your field does, but most of the time you want to dress for success, follow the standard of your field, like business casual kind of, or khakis, everybody wears khakis. You know, you're following what the conference said, be well prepared and rehearsed. Meet the people, shake their hands, connect with them, look them in the eye, don't look at the ground, have a little confident smile, handshake but not wimpy, firm handshake but not Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's somewhere between the two. You gotta have, but you know, I've seen the debutante, it's like, oh, don't do that. So good handshake, good introduction, never apologize for your data. Well, I'm doing this, but I'm sorry, it doesn't, you know, you want to tell them at the beginning, my project didn't work out, but I learned a lot from this. Let me tell you about this. That is proactive. That is positive. It's like, well, oh, the biggest thing, they distract me totally. They'll point out, here's their data. There'll be a weak point on it, and I won't have noticed it, but they really, really point it out in a very apologetic way, and then I obsess on it. And then I stopped listening to anything they said. It's like, well, that blows this whole project. What on earth is that? That's really crappy science. What is that thing? What is that problem? You know, it's like, don't draw big attention. I mean, don't hide things where you need a little more work, but don't really, you know, torpedo your whole talk if you're a little uncertain on something. It's like, yeah, we're still collecting data. That's fine, but not, oh, I'm really sorry, this is kind of crappy. That's never do that. Never self-deprecate. Use professional language, but immediately define. Make sure to pronounce your terms correctly. If there is a term that you don't know and your mouth stumbles over it, go sing it in the shower. Go say it 87,000 times. Sing it, talk it. It's a hard word, but it will come out of your mouth, and do work on it. Continue through mistakes. If you skip something, you know, don't totally freak out. Just say, oh, you know what? I forgot to mention that here, and then you mention it. I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention it. It ruins my whole project. You know, then they'll think you're emotionally disturbed. So just don't freak out too bad. I mean, even when you don't know how to answer a question, sometimes they want to see how you respond. So respond professionally. It's like, wow, I don't know that. That's very interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. Who, you know, let me get your name. Let me look that up. I'm interested, you know. Be positive on everything. Have a solid ending. You know, can I tell you anything else about my work? Can I tell you anything else about my poster? Or do you have any questions? Not, I'm done. So, and stay at your poster. If it's in the middle of a big presentation, have someone else put up a note or have someone else to watch it if you have like an emergency potty run or something you have to do. But overall, help others to conclude you're taking science and yourself very seriously. You know, while at the same time really enjoying the heck out of it. All right, important things to know. Know the history of your technique. Know the history of the project in your lab. Know the foundational work to your project. Why are you using those techniques? What are the implications of your work? What are your next experiments? Any questions you get during practice, come up with a beautiful, concise answer, or if it's big, fix your poster. But if not, you're going to get the same question again, because PhDs think the same way and find little holes, and they will ask you the same question. And if you look it up, you'll look awesome. Look at this student, they know this answer. It's the same as people come and talk to you and give orals. I could never be that good. Look at how they answered that question. You didn't answer it that well the first time. It's the same question they get with all 20 times they give the talk. Anyway, and have some idea of career plans. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know. Just say something. All right. Try not to confuse people. Speak clearly at a good pace. Look them in the eye. Don't make them read. This is what we talked about. Don't make them interpret the figures. You walk them through it. Don't drop off at the end of sentences. This is a big one. Don't turn around at the end of sentences. Those are all, watch your ums, have a strong conclusion. Well, here's the thing. I'm going way too long. I am so sorry. Usually it's 2 talks, and I thought I'd be able to speed it up, and oh well. Make 2 or 3 presentations. Have your same poster, present it at your normal time, 5 to 10 minutes. Have a 3-minute presentation, and have a 1-minute presentation. Because inevitably you will have some old speedy dude, or maybe even a judge who ran out of time and is doing things like the way they shouldn't. Well, tell me about your work in a minute. You know, and it happens. It's happened to me. I've been with students and they've been asked that. So be able to, what is the short way to tell your poster? Have 3 talks. Have your 3-minute talk, just the most important part, and then have your tell them the major parts talk, and just come up with those. Let's see. So really we've talked about this. Start with the intro and then flow, move to methods, move to results, which is longest. So the biggest thing is when you're doing any of this is to come up with good banter and talk between the slides. Don't throw a slide up and go, introduction, la, 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 la. Next, methods, la, 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 la. So here's what we're doing, and it's a study of this. It's really important because of this, and we're going to use several very interesting and novel techniques to do it. For example, here, boom. Here you switch to your, and if it's an or, you switch to a boom. But here, then you start talking about your methods. You don't go methods. So make sure that you flow between the sections and have a good story between them. And especially now when we finished this first experiment, we knew that we had to explore whether or not this problem or this phenomenon was being caused by a histological change. So the next thing we did is we sectioned the tissues, used immunocytochemistry, did whatever, and here we have in figure 2, blah, blah, blah. Here's the result of that. But you want to have good story throughout. And overall, oh yeah, and then here's how to approach a figure. There's like so much info. I'm sorry, y'all. And this probably won't animate. No, go back. Help me. All right. So really, when you're introducing a figure to someone, you got to give them time to look at it. First, 1001, 1002. And let them see it. And what we found here, or what we explored here, was how substance X influenced tumor growth, looking at the whatever minimal diameter over time in weeks of treatment. We had 4 groups here, and it was the control and 3 others. As you can see here, at 10 micromolar or whatever, we began seeing a reduction in tumor size. And you could put circles around important parts. This just moved a little bit. You could, you want to talk here, and you want to talk there. Know where you want to go on your figure and get there. But always know that you have to orient them to it, and so they know what they're looking at. And then what are the 3 important things you want to show them? And know, in this figure, I have 3 important things to show them, and get through all of them so you don't forget them. And then positioning, I just more or less said it. You stand by the side. I like maintaining an open, I'm facing them a lot. It means I have to point left-handed from this side, but that's fine. If you're right-handed and you're standing here to the left side of your poster, if you're pointing with your right hand, you're looking at your poster and not the person. So get good at pointing left-handed. Go ahead and practice. Some people like being on this side, and that's fine. Everybody has their preference, but you end up blocking a lot of your poster, the rest of it. Sometimes people are still looking at it. Sometimes people do. I've seen kids use a laser pointer and point at it. Sometimes you need a visual aid. One guy couldn't describe torsion very well, so he brought a little tube and showed it. Some places say no visual aid, so just read the rubric or read the rules. Practice it a lot, but especially with people who aren't in your lab, especially with lay people, you need to make it understandable to anybody. If you only practice with your lab, you could be using so much jargon, and have a lay person that's not going to just go, ooh. Have a person that's going to wait, don't know what you're talking about. Stop, wait, what, wait, no, stop. Define that. What are you talking about? You need the person. Know the whole thing, practice running through the whole thing. I always practice the beginning, and then when I make a mistake, I start again. When I make a bit, and you end up practicing the end, which everybody remembers like once in the beginning, like 75 times. So practice the whole thing. Know your first sentence, like memorize your title even, and know your first sentence. And in fact, it's easier on these, on an oral. I always put my first sentence in my pocket in case I freak myself out. Because I have this thing where I can get my mind going so much where it's like, what if you forget the first sentence? Oh my gosh, what if you did forget? Oh my God, I've forgotten the first sentence. But if I put it in my pocket, I don't even go into those mind games, so I'm okay. Let's see. Know what you're going to say on each figure, blah. What do you do? What you're at the end? And yeah, that's all fine. When you go, supplemental materials, take something to tape the thing back together if you're someplace where you need to hang it up. Liquid paper sometimes, business cards, water. These things you want to have with you. A little notebook where you could write down people's names when they give them to you. You're not going to remember anything. Transporting it, put it in a roll. Don't forget it in your car. Don't let it run into the subway tracks in Washington, D.C. airport. That has a story to it. Try to carry it on the plane. Stop the whole subway system. And it was right after 9/11. It could be a bomb. I'm surprised they didn't blow it up. Have it in electronic format and say if something really weird happens to it. Don't leave it in your car trunk at the airport. Look good. I'll just go really fast on this. You're not trying to look sexy. Don't look sexy. Look professional. I've seen people with chains and little pencil skirts and super, super high heels. Try staying on super high heels for an hour and a half while you're talking about your poster. Not little puffs of hair coming out here with little chains. No, you're going for professional. You're not going for sexy. Nightclub clothes are out, but business casual is good. Grad students tend to look scruffy at times, especially guys. They all grow a little scruffy beard, which is fine, but just wash your hair before before you give the presentation. Posture, try not to, if you have people watch you and make sure you don't have any weird physical characteristics that you're doing all the time. Like, oh, I've got a ring, I'm playing with it. Don't play with your rings, don't fidget. If you figure out how to de-ummify. For the poster, if you have more than one person listening to you, look at them, not just one, except maybe if he's only your judge. But stand on both feet, don't lean on your poster, have some reasonable, posture, but be relaxed. Where do we go? Oh, here's one last thing. I probably have many one last things, but as they're coming near you, smile at them and take a step away from your poster and give them a nice handshake while looking them in the eye. Don't run 3 or 4 steps away because then you're chasing them. Don't chase people. But as they're approaching you, take a step towards them and do a nice firm handshake. Hi, I'm Gail Taylor. Hi, they'll say who they are. Then you can say, I'm an undergraduate or I'm a graduate student at UT San Antonio in the lab of so-and-so. Oh, and that gives them a moment to say who they are. Can I take you through my poster? Can I walk you through my poster? Can I tell you about my poster? Give them a little invitation. And at that point, they might say the horrible, yeah, tell me about a minute, I'm in a hurry. But most of the time you get to walk them through your poster. And you could even, especially if it's stuff you've only been doing for a little while and you're awesome at it, this is work I performed this summer in the laboratory of so-and-so. You know, you could add stuff like that at UT San Antonio. Yeah, and in this intro, if you wanted to, you could also, how familiar are you with my field? Oh, I'm a professional researcher in your field, researcher. All right, then you get to decide if you want to cut out some of your intro, but it's good to show that you could tell a story, so I'd leave it anyway. Blah, 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 end strong. Oh yeah, this is the weirdest thing is when people go, I'm done. Extras, write down your names and stuff. Anybody who gives you a name, do not forget to contact them. If someone says contact me, contact them. Oh, well, I forgot, I didn't. Well, they invited me. Yeah, they thought maybe a postdoc. And oh yeah, now it's 2 years later and I'm thinking about it. No, just contact them then. And keep the promises. Oh gosh, and online, you have to decide how it's gonna work. Because online can be a pain in the butt. So straight on, some of the conferences I've seen, just post your PowerPoint and they go completely off of your poster. And they text you questions. Other ones, you post a poster and a video file of it, you giving it. So that could work. And on that, you might be standing away and they have the poster to look at so you don't have to zoom in or anything. Other times you could do a live Zoom meeting, and when you're getting to parts and talking about a specific figure, you gotta figure out how to go zoom, zoom, zoom. You're completely separate from the other Zoom, but you gotta zoom into the part you're talking about so they could see it. If you leave your poster back, they can't see it. What I had people do was the Zoom, I had them record themselves in Zoom, and then it gave them multiple chances to zoom in well. And beyond that, I even had another one where they had their big poster and they took the sections and put them on a full slide. So each figure then would go on a full slide and they'd be able to see and explain it that way. So however you end up doing it, there's also conference software, which is kind of, I think more, I don't know, more virtual reality. I don't know. It costs a lot of money. I haven't looked at it yet. There's also Discord, which a student pointed me at, which frightens me because of the name, and that's just my generation and things that are named that way. But it's you have your own server, and you could have everybody could get their own little room in it, their own chat room, and they could all just present their own posters, and you could go and from chat room to chat room and enter their chat rooms. So it's more like a poster, but I didn't have time to work it out this summer. You know, it's more like a normal conference. So anyway, here's lots of extra stuff, and I'm not going to go over it. And I normally don't. It's just sort of there because here's like the oh my God chemistry poster. You know, this one just blows your brains out. This one, it's like, wow, that's nice. You do everything by yourself, and I have no idea where to go in the middle and why. Okay, and then there's this one where, isn't it great that the only important thing on your poster is right there in the middle, and it's tiny, and you advertise your product really big here. And those are my big critiques on it. And here's just the rubric for Abercams, and I put it there for y'all to look at. But anyway, so that is that. And somehow I just dropped out of my PowerPoint, which is fine. But so does anybody have any questions? I'm sorry it went so long. I couldn't see my clock.
I'm gonna turn off the recording right now, and we'll start.